URL, Smack, Beasley, Surf. You would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for us meddling bloggers. Let's talk about it.
Battle Booth is hot for gang on the low. He hot for gang on the low. I'm Battle Booth gang, so y'all know what it is. Y'all know what it is.
The Battle Booth. If you look him up, y'all go subscribe to his channel.
All right. Everybody relax. Everybody calm down. Everybody calm down. I'm calm today. I'm not going to be spazzing like I was the other day. Before I begin this, though, I just want to put up a disclaimer, right? I just want to let you guys know. When we talk about Midnight Madness, when we talk about the business of this whole thing, when we're addressing Midnight Madness and this whole controversy, I don't believe that Smack, Beasley, Chico, and them, even Surf, are evil people. I don't think that they're evil people or anything like that. This is a disclaimer that when we talk about these topics, right, what we're really talking about here is a bigger picture. People like Smack, Beasley, Chico, and them are simply doing what they have to do when it comes to business to ensure the success of the URL. I want to point out, again, as a disclaimer, that when we make these videos and when we talk about these topics, guys, keep the bigger picture in mind. That this isn't saying that Smack is an evil person. This is not saying Beasley's an evil person. This is not saying they're geniuses for sure, very smart, but not evil. When it comes to any business, you have to do what you have to do to ensure the success of the business, the future of the business. What we're talking about here is a bigger picture. Is that the business will cause people to lie, to manipulate, right? To confuse us and battlers in order to get free content out of these people. That's where the issue here lies, and that's where the bigger picture is the fact that we're being deceived. Battlers specifically are being deceived and manipulated to believe that what they're doing and what this process is for the culture, is for exposure, is for these things. When in reality, what's really going on is that we now have a new proving ground process. Proving Grounds 2.0. So in this blog, I'm going to try to address and pretty much explain what this process actually is in its entirety, as well as address some of the things that you guys are saying on social media. Some of you guys are still under the impression that this has nothing to do with URL, which is hilarious to me. But some of you guys are still under the impression that it has nothing to do with URL. So please do your boy a favor, hit a like, share this video, buckle up your seatbelts, and let's get into it. So the idea behind Midnight Madness, to put it simply for you guys, is the Proving Grounds 2.0. That's literally what's going on here. URL has taken the previous process and revamped it. In this situation, though, it's much smarter, the approach and the way that the URL is going about doing the Proving Grounds process. For example, prior, right, we would have a situation with like Pete, right? Not many URL people involved, not an exciting process, actually kind of boring, you know what I'm saying? The Crucible's kind of a dub, you know what I mean? But that's how it was before. It was set up, it wasn't successful. We're not getting a lot of talent out of, you know what I'm saying, the Proving Grounds or whatever the case is. So the URL found a way to involve and incorporate URL and URL battlers, as well as other tactics like bowling, right? Events, fun events with the URL battlers, belts, and things like that, right? You could win belts to make this proving ground process more exciting for everyone, right? That's what's really going on here. The URL is constructing or reinvigorating the proving ground process in a completely different way. This is actually genius the way that URL is doing it though, because URL is able to, in this situation, distance themselves from what's going on. So these battlers that are battling for the culture, for Midnight Madness, are under the impression that they're battling for the culture, for exposure for Midnight Madness. But in all actuality, these guys are battling on a proving ground, sometimes putting up their own money or risking not getting paid at all. So that then in the back end, right, URL will ultimately end up with this content and capitalize off of it, period. It's very simple. This is very, very simple. Battle rappers are being manipulated and lied to. And this is why I want to speak on these things, because I need battle rappers to understand. The reason battle rappers need to understand is because if battle rappers understood what was going on here, right? If battle rappers understood and knew that they were actually battling for the NBA of battle rap, the URL, if they actually knew this process wouldn't go as smoothly as it's going. This process, battlers would not be battling just for the culture. Battlers would not be battling simply for some exposure. Unless, obviously, of course, you're like a D-League battler. You know what I'm saying? Like a low tier or somebody who needs exposure. That's the only people that it might work for. But in all actuality, again, this is a revamping of the proving ground process. Okay? So the proving ground process pretty much is you pretty much auditioned, you know what I mean? To see if you were good enough to make it onto the URL. This is evident. For one, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but as soon as Snake Eyes won, right, versus Nun, according to the judges, he got the belt, he won. He almost immediately after got a contract offer from URL. This is the way that this is supposed to work. This is the way that this is how it was planned to work from the beginning. This is a proving ground process where battlers are gonna participate, volunteer to battle for free, sometimes even put up their own money to audition to be on the URL. That's what's actually going on here. So again, when we talk about this, we're talking about the business and the fact that battlers need to know what's going on here. The fact that the URL has this new process or even is revamping this process, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that the PG process is being revamped, right? It's a good thing that we're trying to find a way to get some stars, you know what I'm saying, or some momentum to some people to get them onto your URL stage so that then we can, fill up cards and, create battles and, situations for the fans and things like that. That's a good thing. That is a good thing. The issue, again, here, and I'm going to reiterate this throughout the video because I feel like people constantly miss this point. The issue comes in where battlers and even fans are being lied to and manipulated out of content and out of this stuff. Because if battlers realized and understood what was going on here and knew that they were auditioning to be on the URL and were doing a URL process, it most likely would not be going the way that it's going. Battlers would not be battling for free. Battlers would not be putting up their own money to potentially win a belt that can do this, that can do that, supposedly. That's where the issue lies. So the fact that Sue Surf has been telling us one thing from the beginning, then it turns out to be a completely different thing, is an issue. The fact that battlers are not aware that they're actually going through a PG process is an issue. Those are the things that are issues. As far as Midnight Madness existing, right, and it doing what it did for like somebody like Hustle, right, or even probably a couple of other people, right, like a True Foe, that part is good. That's cool, right, because we get to get exposure to some people who haven't been getting any exposure at all. But the manipulation is where the problem lies, right? Like some of these, this is going to work for some battlers. Because if you really think about it, There's a lot of battlers. If you guys pay attention to who's popping up on these cards, there's a lot of battlers that weren't getting any exposure at all whatsoever. We didn't even know who some of these people were, right? So for those battlers, it would work. For those battlers, it could work. And those battlers, right, aren't getting booked anyway, anywhere else. So for them, it's almost like they should do this. They should partake in this because they're not being booked anywhere else. You're not going to see battlers that actually get booked on these cards because this is not for them. This is a PG process. You might see some familiar names, right, that might volunteer to do it. Like we already saw Drugs, right? We already saw Luke Castro. But even those aren't like, you know, top tier names or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So you won't see any of those names on these cards because this is not meant for them. As much as we heard them too, right? Top tiers and people talking about doing one rounders on this and doing it. We're not going to see any of that. Trust me when I say that. That's not meant for that at all. And this is what we need to pay attention to. You know what I'm saying? We need to pay attention to who's on the card, what's happening after these battles come out, where are these battles ending up? Are any of these battles going to end up on RBE, KOTD? You know, one of the things that some of you guys are saying is that Sue Surf and them have been talking about the fact that these battles are going to be shopped around to different leagues. So any league has the potential or capability of purchasing this battle. You know what I'm saying? That's what we've been told from the beginning. My thought on that, right, is do you guys really believe that Sue Surf will sit there and negotiate selling a battle that's being held by URL affiliates, URL participants, URL fans? You think that do you think that Sue Surf will sit there and shop this battle to Adam, to ARP? Y'all really answer me this question. Y'all really think that Sue Surf is gonna shop a battle to Organic? I really need to know if y'all really think that Sue Surf is gonna sit there and negotiate selling battles to anybody but the URL. That 72-hour thing came up to justify. Again, y'all need to pay attention, bro. That Surf has told so many lies since the beginning of this whole situation, of Midnight Madness situation. So when Surf says on a space, oh, I negotiated with Beasley to get 72 hours exclusive drop on the URL TV.tv app, and then I negotiated a URL drop because it has maximum exposure and this, that. If y'all believe what be coming out of Sue Surf's mouth, bro, y'all have drunk the Sue Surf Kool-Aid, bro. Y'all drunk the Kool-Aid already. Y'all have already drunk the entire cup of Kool-Aid, bro. Sue Surf will say anything, bro. I don't know how you guys haven't understood this by now, bro. Sue Surf will say anything, bro. Sue Surf never, ever negotiated with URL to get a battle onto the URL TV.tv app. Sue Surf is in no position to negotiate with his superiors, bro. Sue Surf is in no position to negotiate with his employers. Sue Surf is in no condition. He's in no position. He has no. I feel like some of us overestimate Surf's power. Surf has power over fans and battlers. That's true. Surf doesn't have nearly as much power as you think when it comes to dealing with URL. Surf doesn't have the leverage. He might have some leverage when it comes to negotiating how much he gets paid for a battle. But when it comes to a situation like this, Sue Surf has said multiple times how he would never do anything to step on the feet of URL. Do you think that that doesn't include Surf working for URL? You think that that doesn't include... People actually think that Sue Surf negotiated because he said so. This is the thing, because he said so. And again, Sue Surf has lied to us time and time and time and time again. But because he said so, that he negotiated 72 hours on URL app, and because he said so, that it's going to be on the URL YouTube after, that's what happened. Even though Surf has been lying to us from the very beginning, bro. The people that have drunk Surf's Kool-Aid completely believe. That's what they're posting. They're saying, oh yeah, this was the plan from the beginning. This was the plan from the beginning. This was the plan. So you're really trying to tell me, right, that Sue Surf is now the plug for URL. Pretty much. That's pretty much what Sue Surf is, the plug for URL. But Sue Surf works for URL. The way that you can actually tell usually who's responsible or behind something is who something benefits most. Like, who does this benefit most, right? That usually typically explains and tells you what's going on or who's responsible or whatever the hell it is. Like, who is to benefit from this the most? Does Sue Surf benefit from this? Or does the URL benefit more from any of this, bro? The URL gets free content, bro, free battles. They just got a Snake Eyes versus Nun Nun battle that was on fire, bro. They benefit from that. They put it on their app, right? They could potentially get new subscribers, right? Which is the idea. Potentially get a bunch of views and traction to get onto the app. Then after it gets onto the app, it goes onto the URL.tv page, the URL YouTube page, where it'll continue to benefit the URL. That's typically how you can tell who is behind something. But again, I'm going to reiterate this. There's nothing wrong with the URL having or reinvigorating the proving ground process, bro. There's nothing wrong with that. Where the problem lies, again, I'm gonna reiterate this, is where battlers are being manipulated and lied to and made to believe, bro, that they are battling for the culture. But they're battling for the culture, bro, for bragging rights, for this, for that. But in reality, they're really battling for the URL. So the URL can get more content, damn near free content. Here's one thing that I think is very interesting. People actually think that Sue Surf is putting money out of his own pocket to pay for these things, to pay for flights, to pay for venues, to put money on the floor, all that. People think it's Surf. But Surf and New Jersey Twerk and them have already said that they have sponsors. The sponsor that's paying for this is URL. The URL is the one who's paying for what's going on here. It is not Sue Surf. Sue Surf is not paying for these people's flights. Again, you got to think about, what does Sue Surf get out of this? He doesn't get anything out of it, bro. And people are going to say, oh no, yeah, he gets to sell the battles to whoever. Bro, Sue Surf cannot sell these battles to his own boss, to his own employer. The URL employs Surf. Y'all really believe Surf is like his own independent... Bro, that's not it at all. Surf is a URL employee who is currently working under URL. You know, one thing that I thought was very interesting, I'm going to put up the tweet here. Salute the Henny Man, bro. But, bruh, he posted a tweet that said, the phrase URL is behind this is so funny to me. People acting like a crime was committed or something. That was a tweet that was posted by Henny Man. I take this to mean, right, that since they're realizing and they're understanding that fans and battlers are getting in tune with the fact that URL is in fact behind this, he's taken the route of saying, what's so bad about it? What's so bad about the URL being behind this? That's what I'm taking this tweet to mean. Again, I'll repeat the tweet. The phrase, quote, URL is behind this, unquote, is so funny to me. People acting like a crime was committed or something. Henny Man, that's a big issue, bro. If the URL is behind this. because a crime might as well have been committed, bro. A crime might as well have been committed, bro. And again, I'm taking this tweet to mean that because they're understanding, they're seeing that fans and battlers are figuring out that the URL's behind this. This is why this kind of tweet is coming up. It's like, okay, if they're behind it, so what? Like, what's so bad about it, bro? This means, again, that would prove, again, that battlers are being manipulated and lied to, bro. That's where the issue is here, bro. The fact that Midnight Madness exists is not the problem. The fact that battlers are being manipulated and lied to provide free content and free battles is the problem. Again, if battlers knew that they were battling for the NBA URL, bro, they would probably be demanding something. There would probably be some requests. There would probably be things that URL would have to do. So it's absolutely genius for the URL to separate themselves from the situation. Absolutely genius, bro. But what kind of crime could we compare that to, bro? Fraud, like, or something, bro? Like you're scamming people, you're scamming battlers out of free content because they're not aware that they're actually battling for the NBA. I don't understand what Henny Man is trying to say when he says that. But for me, I'm taking it to mean that, again, because we're finding out that the URL is behind this, it's kind of like, okay, you know, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with the URL being behind it? And it's the fact that we're being lied to. Henny Man, that's the crime that's being committed, bro. That's the crime that's being committed. And for somebody like Henny Man, right, or any battle rapper that might be watching and might disagree with what I'm saying, that's okay. But put yourself in the position of that battle rapper, right? Say you were a battle rapper, you didn't really have much exposure. Let's say you had a little bit of exposure, just not a lot, you got a little bit. And you're being told that you're being told that you should battle for Midnight Madness because it's for the culture. You'll get exposure, you can get a belt, you can get this, you can possibly win some money on the floor. But it's all fun. It's all fun and for the culture and all that stuff. And then you battle. You have a great battle. One of the best battles you've had, and you actually won. Then it turns out, bro, that this is actually for URL. It turns out that it was actually for URL. So it turns out that, damn, you could have actually got a deposit. You could have actually got a contract. You could have actually got something for what you did here, but you didn't know that it was for the NBA. You didn't know that, though. You didn't know it was for the machine. So you just missed out on a potential bag. You just missed out on a potential deal with URL. You just missed out on a lot because you were duped into thinking that this was for the culture real quick. Yeah, you just did this for the culture real quick. And battle rappers will agree. Some battle rappers will agree, especially the ones that feel like they might need some exposure, will agree because they're not getting booked anyway. So it's like some of these battlers are even kind of like being cornered into having to do these types of things because they're not getting booked anyway. But again, the thing is that we have to be honest about what's really going on here, bro. Like, we really have to be honest about what's going on here, because once we start to be honest about the fact that, bro, this is a URL process, this is for URL, then battlers could start to demand what they want to demand from URL. If the URL were to reach out to these guys and tell them that they want, these guys could request, oh, yeah, we want to make you a part of, we want you to do this, we want you. You can sit there and you can negotiate, and you could tell, you could be like, oh, cool, all right, can I get this, can I get... Bro, that completely, this Midnight Madness URL not being associated supposedly completely eliminates so much of that hassle that the URL would otherwise have to go through. Which is why this is absolutely genius. But again, which is why I kind of feel like it might as well be a crime, bro, because we're straight lying to these battle rappers who would otherwise, if you weren't lying, would have the opportunity to capitalize on their skill or their content that they're producing. These guys have to sit there and write for weeks in order to give us, the fans, and URL content so that we can watch and monetize on. And they're not even going to be monetizing on it now. That's what this is doing. That's what it's doing. So I hope it makes more sense, bro, the new revamped proving ground process. And to support what I'm saying, bro, Yoshi G, who was previously on Midnight Madness, is speaking out on Midnight Madness. Yoshi G, who was previously or recently booked on Midnight Madness versus Prestavia, is speaking out on Midnight Madness because she's starting to understand as well what's going on here after the Nun Nun and Snake Eyes battle dropped on the app. And she says, so Nun Nun loses by judges, doesn't get paid at all, And now URL, who he wasn't contracted to battle for, gets to capitalize off and own his material and work, and he still gets nothing. He deserves to get paid if the battle got picked up. Bruh, Yoshi G just addressed so many issues in this one tweet. And again, keep in mind, this is somebody who was previously booked on Midnight Madness, speaking out on the results of a battle that dropped from Midnight Madness, bro. She points out he loses by the judges, doesn't get paid, so the battlers don't get paid. Boom, we save money there. He wasn't contracted, no contract. So again, URL voids responsibility. They don't have to talk to these guys. They don't have to deal with any of these guys. Boom. Benefit to the URL, another benefit to the URL. And then they pick up the battle and capitalize off of it. Boom. Another benefit to the URL. Again, when I said before, you got to think about who these things benefit the most is who's actually behind it, bro. Who it benefits the most. And Yoshi G hit it right on the head, bro. She hit it right on the head, bro. Yo, preach, Yoshi, because this is exactly what's happening. And people will still not understand, right? They'll still be like, oh, yeah. But he agreed to battle. Though. That's true. That's true. None Snake Eyes agreed to battle each other. But did they know that these battles were going to end up on the NBA of battle rap? Did they know they were actually battling to end up on the URL app and then the URL YouTube page? No, they did not. No, they did not. No. Why? Because if they did, right, Snake Eyes would have probably asked for a contract or something. Snake Eyes would have probably asked for some kind of deposit or something. This is the idea. I'm not specifically talking about Snake Eyes. I'm talking about battlers in general. They would have had demands. They would have had to have given Snake Eyes something. But they didn't have to, bro. They didn't have to at all. This is where the manipulation is coming in. I hope people are understanding what's going on here. That yes, Snake Eyes and none agreed to battle. Yeah, they did. This is what a lot of you are going to say. They agreed though. So who cares what happens? Who cares where it ends up? They agreed. They agreed to battle for the culture, bro. They agreed to battle for Midnight Madness and for a belt and for money on the floor. They did not agree to battle for URL. They did not agree to that. Those are two very different things. So Yoshi, salute to you, yo, for hitting that right on the head, bro. Now, I tried to explain, right, what it is that's happening here with Midnight Madness. The business. Again, Smack, Beasley, Chico, and them, sir, for not evil people. They're doing what they have to do for the business and the future of URL. Makes perfect sense. Now let's talk about real quick, what are some of the reasons that the URL would want to keep this under wraps? Why would they want to keep quiet, right? Why would they want to separate themselves from what's going on here? Let's get into it. Caffeine contracts. Caffeine contract is probably one of the reasons that the URL doesn't want to admit or doesn't want to take part or admit that they're running or pulling the strings behind the situation. The URL currently has a partnership with Caffeine. You know what I'm saying? Caffeine has streaming rights, I believe, to events that are being streamed. So URL doesn't pay-per-view anymore, if you guys know, what I'm saying, what's going on, because Caffeine took over the streaming rights when it comes to the URL. You know what I'm saying? If the URL were to come out, right, and say that they were behind the scenes of this, right, and they were actually the ones that were doing this, that would probably or likely be an issue with some contractual obligations that they might have with Caffeine. So the best way to go about something like that is to create another Gates of the Garden, right? Create another iBattle, right? To where URL has the ability and has, if you look at the URL.tv app, to purchase battles from these people. They can do that. And that is I guess, okay, because they're able to do that while they're in this partnership with Caffeine. So the URL, realizing that they can do that, has found a way to create their own minor league that they can purchase battles from. It's a perfect kind of like loophole around a situation, bro. Because it's like, URL doesn't buy many battles from any small leagues, bro. Like, they don't have much interest in many of the battles that iBattle holds, or that Gates of the Garden holds, or that We Go Hard. They don't have much interest in all that. But if they can create a situation where they can involve URL battlers, you know what I'm saying, URL fans, and make it seem like as if though it's the same type of situation, that can work. That can work. And it's a way around the Caffeine contract, because the Caffeine now is under the impression that these battles are being purchased from somewhere else. Caffeine themselves, not knowing that the URL was actually holding these events. If Caffeine knew that URL was actually holding these events, Caffeine could potentially get in there somehow. You know what I mean? Like, create an event out of this, or pretty much have to, do something with it. You have to partake in the situation. And I'm thinking that the URL simply just doesn't want to do that. They want to find a way to also capitalize and you know what I'm saying, themselves without Caffeine, because Caffeine, again, is just a partner. URL needs to find ways to monetize on their app and on YouTube as well. And this is almost a perfect way to do that. Again, the URL does buy battles from other leagues, like iBattle, like whatever small league it might be. So this looks like, to Caffeine, that type of situation. That's what this looks like. And again, I'm pretty sure that if Caffeine knew that the URL was behind this, they would probably want to take part somehow. You know what I'm saying? They would probably figure out a way to like stream an event, or like basically cutting into the profit that URL could potentially make from the situation. So ultimately, one of the reasons URL would want to keep this on the wraps is because they can monetize and capitalize the most. This is how they can capitalize the most from the situation. If other people and partners started to find out this was URL, other people and partners are going to want to take part and want a piece of the pie as well. URL keeping this on the wraps avoids all of that, bro. It avoids all of that. The only person that they really have to pay right now is Sue Surf as an employee, so that he can run this whole thing and make it seem like he's the face and running this whole thing by himself. That's the only people they really have to, and obviously make the small investments to hold those events that they're investing in. URL is the sponsor to those events that Twerk said that there were sponsors for, but the sponsors that Twerk said, he just made up some random names and was just mocking random white guy voices to make it seem, pretty much trolling is what Twerk was doing when he said that there were sponsors for these events, bro. He was trolling when he said that, which is why he went about it the way he did. And he was mocking pretty much professionally speaking people and making up random names and saying that those were the sponsors. But the sponsor behind this is actually URL. Another reason that the URL would want to keep this on the wraps, and we already talked about this. We talked about it multiple times, but cheap to free content. Cheap to free content. I made this point already. But the longer that we can manipulate and lie to battlers and make them believe that they're battling for the culture, the more free to cheap content URL can continue to get out of this Midnight Madness. The longer that battlers believe that they're battling for Midnight Madness, the more free content URL can get out of Midnight Madness. I hope you guys are following what I'm saying. Battlers knew that they were battling for URL, bro. I am telling you guys that these battlers would require some things, like a contract, like a deposit, like some type of guarantee, something. But the fact that URL is in the background, right, and is supposedly not involved, completely voids all of that responsibility. There's so much weight now and so much less responsibility on the shoulders of URL as far as having to do those types of things, which is making sure that they negotiate with battle rappers. This is a low risk, high reward situation is what the URL has created. They've created a low risk, high reward situation. And that is absolutely genius on their behalf, bro. I can't even hate on the strategy, right? Or the tactics, because it's so smart, bro. It's like so genius, bro. But what I will continue to point out is the fact that battlers are being lied to. Another reason URL would want to keep this under wraps, bro, and keep silent is because, and again, I've said this, right? And I've referred to Midnight Madness as a farming system. Farming system meaning this is, and Sue Surf even referred to it as like a talent pool. You know what I'm saying? He's referred to himself as like an A&R. Sue Surf has pretty much exposed himself in a situation a bunch of times if people actually pay enough attention as to what's really going on here. So it's whatever. If people don't believe me, I'm not concerned about it. I'm just trying to address exactly what Midnight Madness is in this blog and why it is that URL would want to keep it silent. It's a farming system, bro. It's a farming system. They're trying to develop talent. They're trying to find talent to book on the URL. It's that simple. It's a revamped Proving Grounds. I'm going to say that again. It's a revamped Proving Grounds 2.0, bro. The difference here, though, specifically, though, the difference with this one, though, specifically, is that if the battlers knew that the URL was behind this one, the battlers would need guarantees. Battlers would be requesting stuff. Battlers would need deposits. Battler would need this. A battler would need a completely voids responsibility, bro. Completely. And last but not least, this one is more of a speculation. This thought that I have about, this is like one of my final reasons as to why I believe that the URL wouldn't come out and doesn't admit that they're behind this. This is one of the reasons, bro. You guys know that the URL is currently undergoing a lawsuit with Norbes. You guys know that, right? Like Norbes suing URL or whatever the case is. This is an ongoing lawsuit. Part of what Norbes is suing for is for URL and what belongs to URL. Some of you guys probably already know where I'm going with this. If it can be proved that Midnight Madness belongs to URL, right? If that can be proved, if URL were to come out and say that, yeah, we're the ones running it, if they were to lose that lawsuit to Norbes, guess what Norbes can do? I'll wait. Don't worry, I'll wait. And you know what's funny about me saying this? Before I called Norbes 2 days ago. When this thought came to my mind, I called Norbes. I hit him up on Twitter. I'm like, yo, can I call you? I got a question. He gave me, you know what I'm saying? Called them. I'm like, yo, Norbes, if you can prove that the URL is behind Midnight Madness, could you take that too? Could you add that into part of the lawsuit of what you get? Guess what he said? He said yes. He said yes. So another reason, bro, that the URL would most likely want to keep this under wraps, bro, is it because in the chance that Norbes actually wins this lawsuit versus URL, bro, URL wouldn't have to give up anything for Midnight Madness. So it's currently being developed for that reason as well. Does that make? I hope that makes sense to you guys. URL's currently going through a lawsuit with Norbes. I asked Norbes, I called him, I'm like, yo, if it can be proven that the URL is behind Midnight Madness, could you take from that too? Could you add that into whatever the hell you want in the lawsuit? He said yes. I was like, oh, okay. This is all coming around full circle, bro. This whole situation is coming around full circle, bro. Full circle. Revamping the PG process. You know what I'm saying? Which obviously is a good thing. The bad thing there is that battlers and fans are being lied to and manipulated. They don't know they're battling for URL. They think they're battling for Midnight Madness. That's what they think they're battling for. People are being cheated. That's where the, you know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that there's a new PG process is not the issue. The fact that people are being lied to about it is the issue. Those are just a few of the reasons, bro, why I feel like URL would want to keep this under wraps, bro, and wouldn't want to involve themselves in the situation, because they can lose it all. One thing that I need people to keep in mind, right, going forward, all right, is that the URL and SuSurf are still able to pull a whoopsie on the fans and battlers and make us believe that the URL is not behind this. So, for example, you guys know how I've specifically, my channel has been talking about the fact that this is what Midnight Madness is, right? If URL is the business, right, and SuSurf and them see that people are talking about this way, and people are thinking and realizing and understanding that URL is behind this, the URL and Surf could throw a curveball to throw us off the curb. They can throw a curveball. They can sit there and probably just give a battle to another league to make it seem as if though URL is not actually the one that's behind this. These things are possible. They have the ability to change the course of what's happening. So if more and more fans are showing frustration and understanding that this is what's happening, Surf will come up with more lies. Things will happen that will throw us off the curb if enough of us are talking about and understanding that this is what's happening, bro. So don't be surprised. I highly doubt that any of these battles are going to go anywhere other than URL. But don't be surprised if a one-off battle ends up on like a KOTD. I don't think RBE, because RBE is somebody who Surf is not going to deal with, which is another reason why I don't understand why people believe that Surf is can shop these battles around, bro. Surf is in no position to do that at all. But if the URL sees that the fans are catching on to what's happening, they will absolutely throw a curveball in there, like get a battle over to KOTD, so that then those fans that have drank the Kool-Aid will be like, oh, you see, it's not a URL thing, even though every other battle is going to end up on URL. That's why what needs to happen now going forward is, I feel like we need to pay attention. You know what I'm saying? The fans just pay attention to what's going on, to find out whether or not, you know, what happens confirms for us what we've been talking about. You know what I'm saying? We also need to, you know, keep track of whether or not any other leagues end up with this footage. We need to make sure, at least I want to make sure, that these battlers are aware, bro. That's really the ultimate goal here, bro, with my channel is to make sure that these battlers that are getting themselves into these situations are fully aware of what's going on. Because the more informed you are as a battler, as an artist, as a creator, as an athlete, as whatever, the more informed you are, the more able you are to make good choices, good decisions. I guarantee you that if these battlers that are getting onto this Midnight Madness thing had a lawyer, had a team helping them figure out the best moves to make for their career, they would tell them not to do these things. They would tell them not to do the Midnight Madness thing. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get free footage and you're going to end up on the NBA and you're not even going to get any compensation for it. You're not going to get anything for it. You just pretty much just did a job for them for free. Is what you just did. You just did a whole job for free. You're an independent contractor. You went out, you did a contracted job, right? The guy who's running the job lied to you and told you that this job is being done out of the goodness of our hearts. But that guy who's running the job is actually being paid by the people whose house you're working in. He told you that you guys are doing it out of the kindness of your hearts so that he doesn't have to pay you. But they paid him, though. The people that need the work done paid that guy. But he told you and lied to you and told you that we're doing this job out of the kindness of our hearts so that he doesn't have to pay you. This whole thing is a trip, bro. This whole thing is a trip. But I hope that, you know, in this short video. I tried to keep it short, you know what I'm saying? I hope that in this short video, I'm able to bring at least some understanding, bro. Some understanding to what Midnight Madness actually is. It's the Proving Grounds 2.0. Let me know what y'all think, man. You already know what it is. It's your boy Joe coming at you live and direct from the battle.